Alright, what is up everybody? We are back with another edition of Everyday Hoops. Hope you guys are having a good one. So today, we're doing a video that I did last year. Actually, exactly this date last year, I made a video talk about one breakout candidate for each team going into the next NBA season. And I thought, let's do that again today. I'm doing one player from every team that potentially can be a breakout candidate for next season. Thank you guys for the views on the videos and the shorts recently. I really appreciate it. If you do like the content around here, consider subscribing, like, turn on notifications, do all stuff like that. I really appreciate it. It really helps out a lot. Join the membership. If you want to learn more about the membership, there's a video on my channel explaining all of it. You can go back and watch that. Link to my Twitter, TikTok, stuff like that in the description down below. And yeah, don't waste any more of your time. Let's get right into it. So we'll start with the Atlanta Hawks. For the Atlanta Hawks, my candidate for them is Dyson Daniels. Daniels was acquired in the DeJounte Murray trade from the Pelicans this offseason, and I think he's a pretty good shot for the Atlanta Hawks. Atlanta is probably going to use him a lot with his defensive capabilities, especially next to a Trae Young. I don't know if he'll be the starter, but he'll probably get a lot of time, and he's kind of like the main package, I guess, or the main young player. He's only 21 years old still. He was the 8th overall pick a couple years ago. In New Orleans, he showed some things. Last year he had injury problems. He played 61 games. He got injured near like the middle of the season. And right now he's playing the Olympics. He's doing some pretty solid things. But yeah, he's defensively, he's really, really good. He's a really good defender. Really strong body. Gets a lot of, I think he was at one point led the league in deflections. Like, he's really good defensively. It's just really about the offensive game. You know, he can drive and attack, but it's the three-point shooting. It's not really there yet. And if he's going to be an off guard, especially in Atlanta, where he's going to be probably next to a Trae Young or, you know, Kobe Buffkin might get some time, Bogdanovich, like, he could probably play some one, but he might play a lot of two. The three-point shooting is going to be something that they're really going to have to bank on. But I do believe Dyson Daniels could come out next year and have a really good year. I think he's going to get probably the most minutes he's probably gotten, I would assume, so far in his NBA career. I mean, he played 17 minutes per game his rookie year, 22 minutes per game last year, and started in 16 games. Again, I don't know if he's going to be the actual starter in Atlanta, but I think he's going to get a lot of playing time, and I think he'll have the opportunity to be able to come in and break out next year and kind of become, you know, find what his role is. Of like, all right, is he a really good, you know, two-way guard? In terms of maybe offensively, he's a ball handler. Defensively, he's a good point of attack defender. Is he just a straight-up defender? Can he develop a three-point shot? Like, what position? Is he a point? Is he a two-guard? Kind of just figuring out who is he really? What type of player is he going to be? And I think Dyson Daniels has a really big opportunity next season to show who he really is. Next to the Boston Celtics, go with Neemias Queta. Now, this Celtics are a very hard team to deal with this because they don't have a lot of, you know, they just won a championship, so they're bringing players that we already kind of know who they are. But I'm going with Neemias Queta. Queta last year was on the team. He only played in 28 games. Then played a few games in the playoffs, 3 games, not really any meaningful minutes. But I think maybe this year he could become a decent rotational player. He had a really good summer league. If you watch my summer league video where I said the best players from summer league, he was the best player on the Boston Celtics. He looked amazing in the summer league. That's also because he's played a couple years in the NBA already. But also, if you don't remember, Kristaps Porzingis could potentially not be healthy. They don't expect him to be healthy for the start of next season. So that'll leave a lot more big men. Of course, Al Horford, Luke Cornett, and Neemias Queta could be one of those guys that gets a lot more minutes next season and gets actual spot. You know, and if he comes in training camp, kind of like what he did in summer league and brings that to training camp, there could potential he could be the backup big man. And if he starts playing well, I mean, he has a big body. He's a 7-footer. Rebound. He's gonna just do the simple things: rebound, block shots, catch lobs. And if you do that at a solid enough level for a couple minutes per game and kind of take that backup center role until Porzingis comes back, that's gonna be big not only for, you know, the Celtics but for his value as well, and kind of, especially being on a championship team, seeing that he can contribute like that will do a lot for, you know, the rest of his career. Who knows? For the Brooklyn Nets, now this one's an interesting team to do because they are breaking everything up and there's a lot of young players with potential. But I'm gonna go with Noah Clowney. Clowney was a first round pick last year by the Brooklyn Nets. Only played 23 minutes a game last year. Didn't really get a whole lot of opportunity till about the end of the season. But now with the Brooklyn Nets kind of going young and blowing everything up, Noah Clowney is definitely going to get some spotlight next year, and I think he can have a really nice second season. He's a 6'10" power forward, kind of a very typical power forward that teams want nowadays. You know, he's a guy that's gonna shoot the three ball, and he's gonna defend pretty well, especially shot blocking. He's really good at. He's a really good defender already. Really, it's about polishing the offensive game. He's already got a solid 3-point shot, and I think you saw in summer league as well. Summer league he has some really good moments, and I think again with the Brooklyn Nets kind of getting a lot more opportunity to the young players next season, I think Noah Connor can be a guy that can come out in his second year and kind of get on the scene, and people be like, oh shoot, Noah Connor actually can be a really good player in the future, and he's still only 20 years old. So he's still very, very young. He won't be 21 till, well, the next entirety of next year he'll be 20 years old. So he's still very, very young, has a lot more to do. And I think with the opportunity he might get next year with the Brooklyn Nets, I think it's worth a shot that he can be a breakout player for them. For the Charlotte Hornets, I'm going with Josh Green. Green was a part of that huge 16 trade that saw Clay end up in Dallas, and Josh Green went over to the Charlotte Hornets, and I think he has opportunity to be a breakout candidate for the Hornets next season. Of course, in Dallas, he kind of came into a playoff team and had to find his way on the court. He had a really good 2023 season where he shot 40% from three. Last year wasn't the same statistically, kind of went down a little bit, but still was a solid rotational player for a team that made the finals last season. I think now with the Charlotte Hornets, where they need talent, they need good basketball players. Josh Green is a really good basketball player, and he's still only 23 years old, so he kind of fits into the young timeline as well. So I think the Hornets probably going to give Josh Green a lot more opportunity, and he'll get some more consistent minutes and have just a bigger, more opportunity to come out and maybe show who he really is. In Dallas, we've seen him kind of have to transition into being this energy role player type guy. Now in Charlotte, maybe he can expand his game a little bit more on that. We'll see how good the 3-point shot is. He shot 38% from three last year on 3 attempts in the regular season. And then the playoffs, he shot 39% on a little bit under 3-pointers a game. So maybe with more shots and more opportunity, like he's only taken, last year he took a career high where he took only 6 shots per game. You assume in Charlotte, more opportunity for him, that probably can increase maybe even to double digits depending on how good he's doing. And statistically, he'll look better. And maybe we get to see a new form of Josh Green that we haven't really seen before because he's kind of been in Dallas having to be forced to play a certain way. So I think Josh Green is actually a really good shot. For the Chicago Bulls, going with Jalen Smith. They signed him to a 2-year deal this offseason. Jalen Smith, former top 10 pick a couple years ago. And Phoenix just didn't really get opportunity because Phoenix became a championship contending team right away. Went to Indiana. The last couple years in Indiana, he's been solid. He's found some things. And then now he's going to go to Chicago, where he's going to get a lot more opportunity to be the consistent backup big. Last year, he was the backup big to start the year, and then Isaiah Jackson was good. They brought in Pascal Siakam, Obi Toppin. It was just a lot of people in that position. And then coming in with Jarace Walker coming into his second season, it just made a lot of sense that Jalen Smith kind of was like the odd guy out in terms of where he's going to be. So now he gets to go to Chicago, where after Vucevic, who knows how long Vucevic is going to be on the team, he's going to have the chance to be the full-time backup center, maybe even starter again, depending on if they do find a trade for Nikola Vucevic or anything. Jalen Smith still only 24 years old. You saw he's had potential as 3-point shooter. He shot 42% from 3 last year on 2 attempts. Shot 59% from the field. Again, he only took 6 shots a game, but the efficiency was there. Big body rebounder. He's shown some shot blocking ability as well. So I think Jalen Smith has a really good opportunity. I love that he went to Chicago. I think Chicago, that was a really nice job, I think, taking a chance on him. A top 10 pick that's still kind of young and hasn't really gotten a full-length opportunity to be a full-time player. I think this is a great opportunity for him and for the Bulls to see if maybe they can find something for the future with Jalen Smith. For the Cavaliers, I'm going with Evan Mobley. Now, I should have said this at the beginning of the video, but breakout can mean a lot of different things. That's why I'm going into in-depth kind of explaining my reasoning behind this. And so I'll explain my breakout reasoning for Evan Mobley and why I picked him. Evan Mobley is already a really good player. He's already a starter-like player. Most of these guys I've already named are guys that kind of maybe were bench pieces and then kind of maybe can find more opportunity. For Evan Mobley, he's already a starter. He's already a top player on his team. So what do I mean by breakout? Well, I mean breakout in the sense of I feel like this past season, we were waiting for Evan Mobley to take a big jump that he didn't really take. He was solid, especially in the regular season. The regular season, he was solid. Playoffs, he showed some things, but he didn't really take that big step forward offensively that we expect. We know what he does on the defensive end. But offensively, we've just been waiting for a jump from him that we didn't really see in the regular season. He also missed a lot of time and only played in 50 games. In the playoffs, though, he did show some things. The playoffs, he averaged 16, 9, and 2 with 2 blocks of 55% shooting. In a series against the Boston Celtics where he was at the 5, without Jared Allen, he looked like the best he looked all season. So I think if he could come in to the regular season this year with that same mindset that he had in the Boston Celtics series, I think this could be the year, especially with MLB also just getting that big contract. He's going to have to prove himself with that contract, and the Cavaliers have a lot to prove coming into next season as well. So I think Evan Mobley has that chance to take that offensive jump this offseason. And so when I say breakout for Evan Mobley, I mean taking the next step and becoming maybe last year he averaged 15. I think he could definitely average 17, 18, maybe even a little more points per game. Maybe average double-digit rebounding. Of course, it's going to be tough with Jared Allen down there as well. And apparently, they're not breaking up that duo. But if Evan Mobley can kind of establish himself and show, like, hey, I can be a full-time 5 as well, maybe that could make Jared Allen expendable. And then they can get more pieces for Jared Allen. So I think Evan Mobley, after seeing how he ended last season, if he can come into this season with that same mentality and same mindset, I think he can have a really nice, jump forward this year. The Dallas Mavericks going with Najee Marshall. Najee Marshall was a signee by the Dallas Mavericks this offseason after playing his first 4 years of his career with the Pelicans. And I think this is a very nice move for the Dallas Mavericks. I really like this move. I liked it in the moment. I still like it now. Najee Marshall is a guy that is just a Swiss Army knife. Swiss Army knife. He just is going to try to do a little bit of everything. He can shoot the 3-ball pretty decently. He can handle the ball a little bit. He's going to give it his all on the defensive end. He's going to make the little plays. He's a really good player. And I feel like in New Orleans, he has some good moments. But with Zion, Briai, there's a lot of people digging in his position. So he couldn't really show his full thing. Now he's going to Dallas, where they were just in the finals last year. They're going to be on a big stage with Luka and Kyrie. If Najee Marshall had come in and played kind of the same way that he did with New Orleans with Dallas and do it on a grander scale, maybe his statistically doesn't do anything insane. I'm not saying, he averaged 7 last year. I'm not saying he can come up and average 14 points per game. But I'm saying maybe the perception of him and how we view Najee Marshall can change. In a sense where it could be like, oh, shoot, this guy's one of the better role players in the NBA. He has that type of game where he can do a lot of those different things. And I think he probably could play a lot of minutes as well with Klay Thompson at the 3 if they want to go defensive to end out some games, especially with them losing Derrick Jones Jr. They get a guy like Najee Marshall who also can be a really, really good defender and maybe even shoot the 3-ball potentially a little bit better than Derrick Jones Jr. So I think Najee Marshall was a really, really good get by the Dallas Mavericks, and I think he could be a guy that we can see if he has a good year and does the same things with the Mavericks and they make it far in the playoffs again. We'll be looking at Najee Marshall and being like, dang, this guy's a really, really good role player. The Denver Nuggets, I'm going with Julian Strawther. I talk about it all the time, but I'm a big fan of Julian Strawther, and I think this year could be the year where he kind of can break out. Last year as a rookie, he was a late first round pick, 29th pick in last year's draft. He played in 50 games last year. He did okay, but maybe this year could be the year where he takes a step forward. Of course, we all know with the Denver Nuggets, they lost KCP this offseason. Christian Brown's probably going to have to step into that starting lineup, and the Nuggets are going to have to rely on a lot of their young guys off the bench again this season, even more than ever now without KCP. They did bring in Russell Westbrook, but they still have to rely on a lot of young guys. And I think Julian Strawther has the game and the capabilities to be one of the young guys that they can rely on, and he can become a key rotational player next year for the Denver Nuggets. He's a guy, he's 22 years old. He was a multiple-year guy at Gonzaga, playing some big games, does his thing. In Summer League this year, he was absolutely amazing. I think he led Summer League in scoring this year. He was absolutely incredible. He even showed some things last year in the preseason. I made a whole video about him after the preseason, talking about how this guy's going to be a hidden gem. And I think this year can be the year where he comes out and becomes a key rotational player for this team, and he shows what he can do and can be one of the guys that they trust, especially going into big playoff series. Maybe he could be a guy that they can trust. For the Detroit Pistons, I'm going with Paul Reed, B-Ball Paul. Of course, after spending his first couple years in Philly, he was waived this offseason. The Pistons picked him up off the waivers. And I think it was a really nice move from the Pistons. And I think he can have a really solid year for Detroit. Last year, he played in all 82 games, only starting 24, played about 19 minutes. He averaged 7 and 6 with a block per game. I think he can probably get more minutes this year with the Pistons. I mean, of course, Jalen Duren is their starting center and is going to be one of their blocks for the future. But I think after that, Paul Reed has a really good shot to be their backup center. They still do have Isaiah Stewart, but he plays a 4 or 5. After that, they don't really have another big man on the roster. So Paul Reed's going to get a lot of opportunity probably as their backup center. And I think if he does come in and does similar things, I mean, he's a really good defender. Really good defender. He's going to play really hard. You know, he rebounds the ball pretty well. Just a really good, hard-working big man. So if he can come in and play a really good backup center, consistent backup center role for the Detroit Pistons, he could be a guy they look at and be like, damn, we can keep this guy around. He still is only 25 years old as well. So I like Paul Reed a lot. I think he's a really, really solid player. And with Detroit, he's going to get a consistent opportunity to be their backup. And maybe even get a little bit more opportunity, you know, for some even more minutes, depending on how Jalen Duren's health and depending on how the Pistons are. Paul Reed, I think, has a good option to statistically jump next season. For the Warriors, I'm going with Brandon Podziemski. Now, here's my breakout for him. Podziemski had a really good rookie season, finished top 5 Rookie of the Year voting. But I think this second season, he can take another pretty big jump for Golden State. He already kind of was the second or third best player on the team last year, and now he'll get the chance to be a full-time starter with Klay Thompson gone. He'll get a chance to be a full-time starter with the team. He played for the youth select team this year. Summer League, he looked amazing. I think this year he can take not only a statistical jump, where last year he averaged 9, 6, and 3 on pretty good efficiency. I think this year he can take that jump to maybe even 14, 15 points per game, 6, 7 rebounds, maybe 5 assists. Like, he can have a really good statistical season next year. He's a really, really good basketball player in general. I think being with the Warriors, being with Steph, with Draymond, I think he's going to have a really nice year next year. And the Warriors have a lot to kind of prove as well to the NBA. So Brandon Podziemski can be a guy where he comes out next year and he takes a big jump from his rookie year to his second year. For the Rockets, I'm going with Amen Thompson. Kind of similar thinking to Brandon Podziemski, and I'm going to have a couple more guys on the list that kind of fit this similar mold, where Amen came on the scene his rookie year, and actually the end of his rookie season, he came out and did some really nice things. He averaged 9, 6, and 2 with a steal per game on 53% shooting. I think if he can build on that from the end of last year, coming into this season, and start the year, he probably will get some time in the rotation, you know, as kind of their backup guard role with him and Reed Shepherd. The Rockets have a lot of things going on there, but Amen Thompson should be one of their guys that are a staple and should be regularly getting rotation minutes because he can do so many good things. So I think Amen Thompson could be a guy where if he has a full season, because he only played in 62 games last year, so if he can come in and play a full season in his second season with this new Rockets team that you could assume is going to be more of a winning team, Amen Thompson could have a really, really, really nice second season. The Indiana Pacers going with Andrew Nembhard. Andrew Nembhard is a really, really good player. Last year with the Indiana Pacers, even though statistically didn't have the same season as he did his rookie year, still was really nice. But then in the playoffs, that's really, really shine. He averaged 15, 3, and 5 on 56, 48, 77 shooting splits in their playoff series. Has some huge games, especially in that conference finals against the Boston Celtics. And I think coming off that, and then the other day just got a contract extension as well from Indiana, so they believe in him. I think Nembhard is going to have a really nice year next year. He probably will be the full-time starter. Last year he wasn't the full-time starter until about midway through the season. He's only started in 47 of their 68 games. I think this year he'll probably become a full-time starter, especially off that playoff run. And with the new contract, I assume him to be a full-time starter. And I think he can come out and have a really good statistical season, but also just be a really impactful player for Indiana and be maybe their third, fourth best player on their team this year. I think, you know, that playoff jump really got everybody kind of a big fan of Nembhard. I've always been a big fan of Nembhard since coming into the NBA. I think next season that playoff boost is going to hit hard, and he will come out and have a really good third season. For the Clippers, I'm going with Kobe Brown. This was another tough team to do with the Clippers because they have a lot of veteran players, and it's really tough. And they're also in a very weird spot right now where I don't know if they're going young or if they're just kind of trying to formulate a playoff team. I don't really know what's happening with the Clippers. They're very interesting. But my breakout candidate for them could be Kobe Brown. Brown was the last pick of the first round in their last year's draft. He played in 44 games last year, did all right. But maybe this year he can come out and become a rotational player for them. They don't really have a lot of players that could play the 4. I mean, PJ Tucker probably isn't going to be around a whole lot. Kawhi probably will maybe play the 4. Then after that, it's just kind of weird what their spotting is right now. But I think Kobe Brown, especially being an older guy, he's already going to be 25 years old going into his second season. So he's not gonna be like a regular 19, 20-year-old rookie that's just gonna have to wait on the bench. He's a guy that has multiple years, is already kind of older for a second-year player, so he'll already have some experience, and he can maybe play with the Clippers with his play style. He's an amazing three-point shooter in his last year of college. He's a really good ball handler as well for being 6'7", 250. He moves really well, handles the ball really well, can shoot the 3 ball. He's got a very intriguing skill set with his size, so maybe Kobe Brown can be someone that cracks the rotation at some point during next year. For the Lakers, going Max Christie. I think this was who I had for the Lakers last year when I did my breakout video, and I'm going with it again. Didn't get as much opportunity as I thought he was going to get in his second year last year, but now they gave him an extension, 4-year, $32 million extension, so that shows that they're confident in him, and I assume he's going to be playing regularly next year for the Lakers. Maybe, being just their 8th, 9th man. But Max Christie has a really nice game, and he's still 21 years old, showing the ability to shoot the 3 ball, showing the ability to be a really good defender, as well be a good 3-and-D, kind of guard wing, which is something the Lakers desperately need. So Max Christie, I assume he will be a regular rotational player next year for the Lakers, and I think he can break out in a sense of where he can become one of their more trusted guys coming off their bench and maybe even take over that 6th, 7th man spot for them. For the Grizzlies, going with G.G. Jackson. Now, this is another one where it's kind of like, he had a really, really good rookie season, made all rookie team. He only played in 48 games, but in those 48 games, he showed out. Now with the Grizzlies, with everybody going to be back next year, you assume Ja, Baines, Marcus Smart, Jaren Jackson, they're going to be at full health again. G.G. Jackson, even though he's still only 19 years old, he won't be 20 until about like midway through next season. He still will have a chance to be a rotational player for them. I think he should be. He had a really nice summer league as well. I mean, he's a big body scoring forward. Could just bring some good scoring off the bench. He'll probably be their 7th or 8th man. He can come out, and if he can contribute like this to a team like the Grizzlies, who you assume are going to be a playoff team next year and be a winning team next season, I think the money for him goes up. Where's rookie extension? That's going to cut in like another year or two. That goes up. And just showing everybody, I can do this even on a playoff team. Because last year with the Grizzlies, again, they were so injured. They were one of the worst teams in the league. So G.G. Jackson was just going out there doing whatever. And it was looking good. But now if he could do that for a playoff team like the Grizzlies and be a guy that they can trust, that will do wonders for him for the future of his career as well. For the Miami Heat, going with Nikola Jovic. Jovic didn't really do much as a rookie. Last season, near the end of last season, he became a starter for Miami because there were so many injuries, and he showed some really nice things. He averaged 7, 4, and 2, shot almost 40% from 3-on-3 at 10.5 attempts per game, and I think that showed the trust that Eric Spoelstra has in him, and I think coming into his 3rd season, he can have a really big year. He's still young. He's still only just turned 21 years old, so he'll be 21 years old for the entirety of next season, and I think, especially with Miami not having a lot of people at his position, with Caleb Martin leaving, Jimmy Butler getting older. They did bring in Khalil Ware. They still have Jaime Jaquez. But Jovic will have a really nice shot next season. I don't know if he'll be the starter full-time like he was last season, but he still probably will be a more consistent rotation player. And I think with that, he can really break out and have a really nice 3rd season where he shows, like, yeah, I'm an actual rotational good NBA player. Because he has a really nice skill set. I mean, he's 6'10", but can handle the ball, make plays like a point guard, can shoot the 3 ball pretty well. Like, he's a very skilled big. So, which is something Miami, they have Bam, but they don't have a guy like Jovic that can do it like that. So, yeah, I'm very excited to see what Nikola Jovic does next year for the Miami Heat. I'm going to do a young player, but the Doc Rivers doesn't play young players. So, this is my one, and you got to hear me out for this, and I'll explain it to you. For the Bucks, I'm going with Gary Trent Jr. Now, even though we already know Gary Trent Jr. is a good NBA player. I mean, last year, even though he had one of his worst years since his 2nd season, he averaged 13 points per game last year, shot 39% from 3-on-6 attempts. So statistically, I'm not saying he's going to make a big jump statistically and average 20 points per game, especially with the Bucks. We have Dame and Giannis. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying the perception and the perception around Gary Trent Jr. could change next year. I mean, he was a guy that coming into free agency wanted some big money, and assumed he was going to get big money. But then he ended up having to sign a 1-year minimum with the Milwaukee Bucks to kind of bet on himself, which I really like for Gary Trent, especially going to a Bucks team that kind of needs a player like him that can be a consistent three-point shooter and a defender. Well, at least in Portland, he was a defender. In Toronto, the last couple of years hasn't been as great defensively, but he can still potentially, he has that in him somewhere that he can unlock that defensive potential, which the Bucks were not a good perimeter defense last season. So Gary Trent's going to come in, maybe even be a starter, is going to play a big role for this Bucks team. And I think if he come in and if he can shine in that role and be really, really good, shoot another 39-40% from 3 on good attempts, and while being a pretty solid perimeter defender as well, and contributing to the Bucks' success, which you assume they're going to be another good team next season. If he can contribute to that success, I think that will open up the bank for Gary Trent Jr. going into next offseason. So he has a really good opportunity to bet on himself and make it worth it next year. For the Timberwolves, I'm going with Leonard Miller. Miller was an early second-round pick last year from them. He only played in 17 games last season, didn't really play a whole lot. He was, at one point, considered a first-round pick out of the G League Ignite. Fell down a little bit to early second round. But I think Leonard Miller has a chance to potentially crack the rotation next year for Minnesota. I mean, they lost Kyle Anderson as one of their backup forwards, so that can put Leonard Miller in there. He kind of could play a power forward, small forward, maybe center. I'm not 100% sure about center yet, but they already have so many good center play that if he doesn't, it's not the end of the world. But Leonard Miller has a really intriguing skill set. He was, in my Summer League video, I said he was probably the best player in Minnesota Timberwolves Summer League. He's a guy that 6'10" with long arms, very, kind of wiry, can move very well, runs the floor really, really well, can shoot the 3 ball, as well as very intriguing, and maybe can be even very, interesting defensively and versatile, moving his feet and blocking shots and doing all that stuff, which Minnesota's one of the top defenses. So if Leonard Miller can come in and do that defensively, I think he can get a shot next year to potentially be a rotational player for Minnesota, and them starting to build this young nucleus with Anthony Edwards, with Rob Dillingham, Terrence Shannon they brought in, and if Leonard Miller could be a rotational player next year, that would be big. For the Pelicans, I'll go with Jordan Hawkins. Jordan Hawkins had some really nice moments last year with New Orleans, even though unfortunately he wasn't a full-time rotational player, which was really confusing to me. Only played in 17 minutes per game, played in 67 games, started in 10 of them. Kind of near the end of the year, kind of just fell out of the rotation. But I think that second year will be different. I think he can become a regular rotational player next year for New Orleans. I mean, every team needs shooting, and Jordan Hawkins is the guy that is not afraid to shoot that ball. And if he gets hot, he can get hot. But he's also shown to do a little bit more. Maybe he can be a potential scorer, even though they don't really need him to, because they have DeJounte, CJ, Zion, B.I. still on the team. They have a lot of guys that can create for themselves, but he still has that ability. If he could just be a consistent knockdown shooter, like we know he can be for this team, and I think he could be someone that can be in the rotation very, very regularly next season, because, why not have as many three-point shooters out there on the court as if you want to? So I'm very excited for Jordan Hawkins in his second season. For the Knicks, I'm going with Jericho Sims. Now, I'm saying this for a couple of reasons. Number one, the New York Knicks, they lost Isaiah Hartenstein, and right now, Mitchell Robinson and Jericho Sims are the only two real centers they have on their team. Julius Randle probably will play a lot of 5 next year, but Jericho Sims is probably going to get the most opportunity of his career. He's been a guy that has usually had to come in when injuries happen, like when Mitchell Robinson was hurt the last couple of seasons, or Julius Randle was hurt or something. They just needed some big man play off the bench. He would come in and play a little bit. But now I think he can have an opportunity to become maybe even the full-time backup center. I mean, he's 25, about to be 26 years old. He's a guy that can rock the rim, that he can be a really good lob threat and rebounder. Really, if he can become a really good, rim protector, can show growth on the defensive end in terms of blocking shots and doing all that. Tom Thibodeau loves those bigs that can do that. So if he can do that consistently and be a rebounding and block shot threat, I think he can have a really good opportunity to become a full-time backup center next year with the hole that the Knicks have at the center position. For the Thunder, I'm going with Aaron Wiggins. Aaron Wiggins just got a nice little contract extension this offseason. But Wiggins is a really, really, really good role player. And I feel like this breakout next year could be something similar to I said about a couple other players. Look like Najee Marshall, what I said about him, where it's like statistically he might not take a big jump. You know, he averaged 7, 2, and 1 last year. It's not like I'm saying he's going to average 13 now this offseason. I mean, this year. But I think the perception and the impact of Aaron Wiggins can be a lot bigger. I mean, he played, crazy enough, he played the least minutes of his career last year. He played 15 minutes per game last year, even though he played the most games of his career, 78. So he didn't really play a whole lot, but I assume with this contract extension, he's going to get a lot more opportunity and playing time. And when he did play last year, he was amazing. I mean, he shot 56% from the field, 49% from three last season, on only 5 attempts and 1 3-point attempt per game. But he's a very efficient role player. Cuts really well, just does all the little things, doesn't need the ball in the offensive end to really make an impact. And I think if he can be a regular rotational player next year for the Thunder and get a lot more minutes, he can show that he's one of the more impactful role players in the game. Orlando Magic, I'm going with Jet Howard. Howard was the 11th overall pick in their last year's draft. Only played in 18 games last season, didn't really get opportunity. But this year, I think he could get more opportunity. Even though I think the Orlando Magic have kind of a loaded team in a sense where every position feels like it has 2 or 3 guys that are battling for it and can really get in there and play. Jet Howard, he had a really, really good summer league. In my summer league video, I said he was probably the best player in the Magic summer league. And he's something that they really need. The Magic, one of their big weaknesses was 3-point shooting, which is why they went out and got KCP. Jet Howard is a 3-point shooter, 6'8" sniper. You know, especially, I mean, a shooter with that size at 6'8" has to be really, really intriguing, which is why they probably drafted him a lot higher than a lot of people expected him to go. But having that size, be able to shoot the 3 ball like that, which is one of the Orlando Magic's weakness, I think that gives him a really nice shot of becoming a potential rotational player at some point down the line next year for the Orlando Magic. For the 76ers, going with Ricky Council the fourth. Council was a two-way guy last year that eventually became a standard contract guy and had a really nice summer league as well, like what I saw. And now this next season could have a real chance of becoming a regular rotational guy for this Philadelphia 76ers. I mean, he's 22, about to be 23 years old. Is very, very athletic. Is a multiple year guy in college, so he has a little bit more, experience than a lot of other young guys. I think Ricky Council has the game where he can potentially become a rotational player, especially with, the confidence in his 3-point shooting. Even though he didn't shoot the 3-ball percentage-wise super well in Summer League, I like the confidence he showed in taking a lot more threes, because that was one of his weaknesses coming out of the draft, which is, I think, probably a big reason why he went undrafted, was because he wasn't really a good 3-point shooter. And now, if he has the confidence to take those threes, I think that'll do wonders for him. He's got the athleticism, the build to potentially be a good defender as well. And if he can come in and give a couple of good minutes a game for a really good 76er team, I think that will get him paid. So, Ricky Council, I think he really does have a chance to crack the rotation next year. Phoenix Suns. This was another really hard team to do, and you know what? Bobo, man. Even though at this point, do I really have much hype in Bobo? I don't really know. He's been in the league for 4 years and hasn't really shown a whole lot. Maybe if Bobo can lock in, he could become a good rotation. I mean, they did lose Drew Eubanks this year, offseason. They did bring Mason Plumlee, though. But if Bobo can really, lock in and find his way, I mean, he's still only, 20? He's still 24. He's still very young. So maybe next year could be the year where Bobo comes out and finally becomes a regular rotational player next year. But I don't know. I just had to pick one for Phoenix, and so I went with Bobo. Why not? For the Portland Trailblazers, going with Shaedon Sharpe. Sharpe had a really, really nice rookie season. Last year showed really good things, but only played in 32 games. Fortunately, suffered a big injury. But this coming next year, I think he's going to break out and has a chance to establish himself as one of the key building blocks of the future for the Portland Trailblazers. He's still 21 years old. He's going to be 21 next season. He's going to have the opportunity to be in there, especially if Jeremy Grant does get traded. I think he'll have the opportunity even more on the wing position. He's got the athleticism. He's got the ability. He showed the scoring ability last year as well. It's just, again, he only played 32 games. He got injured. But Shaedon Sharpe, I think, could be in line for having a really, really big third season. I think if he does have a really big third season, then maybe he's the building block of the future for the Portland Trailblazers. It's not Scoot. Who knows? But we'll see. For the Kings, I'm going with Jalen McDaniels. McDaniels was traded this offseason from Toronto to Sacramento. With the Kings, and of course getting DeMar DeRozan and stuff now, they're looking to be a winner. And I think Jalen McDaniels could potentially be an impactful player for Sacramento next year. I mean, last year with Toronto, only played 50 games, only played 10 minutes per game, played the least amount of minutes of his career. He's 26, going to be 27 next season. Solid defender. He's got the length and the size of being a very solid defender. It's really just about the offensive end. Can he consistently knock down the three ball in the Sacramento system? Throughout his career, he hasn't been a high volume 3-point shooting guy. I mean, last year he only took 1 3 a game and shot 17%, but the years before, rookie year, shot 37% on 1.5 attempts. Second year, 33% on 2 attempts. Third year, 38% on 2 attempts. 2023, 33% on 3 attempts. So it's not really a high volume 3-point shooting guy, which, I mean, he's a bench player. But if he can just be a solid 3-point shooter, and then the defensive end can really lock in because the Kings are going to need that defense on the perimeter, Jim McDaniels could find himself into being a valuable rotational piece for them. The San Antonio Spurs on Malachi Branham. Malachi Branham had a really solid rookie season. Last year was all right. I mean, statistically didn't look any better, but the efficiency got a lot better. And I think maybe in his third year could be the year where he finally breaks in and becomes a regular guy for the San Antonio Spurs. They do have Chris Paul now, who he's going to be a lot more of the point guard role, where Malachi Branham was a point guard last year after he was more of a 2 guard coming out of school and coming in his rookie season. But Malachi Branham, I'm a big fan of Malachi Branham. I love his game, being smooth, getting to the mid-range area. The 3-point shot looked solid last year. He shot 34% on 3 attempts per game. So he's got, you could tell he's got some talent with the 3-ball. He's more of a mid-range scorer, though. So it's going to be interesting to see how he fits with Chris Paul on the court, if he's on the court with Chris Paul at the same time, or maybe if he's the backup point guard with Trey Jones, who knows. But I think Malachi Branham has the game. I really like his game. I think he can come out next year, and if he could be a regular rotational player and he can get that 3-ball going, then I think it could do wonders for him. For the Raptors, going with Emmanuel Quickley. We already know Quickley how good he really is. Last year when he got to Toronto in 38 games with Toronto, he averaged 18 points and almost 7 assists per game. He got a huge contract extension, 5 years, $175 million. So that shows Toronto believes that he can be the point guard of the future for them. And I think he can come out next year and have a really big season. Maybe even be a over 20 point per game scorer. He's going to have a full year in Sacramento. Now, the full year as the starting point guard with a Toronto team that isn't really amazing. So he'll have a lot more opportunity to score and to play make for others. And if he and Scotty can really be a nice 1-2 duo, I think that could be great for Emmanuel Quickley, and he can really show, I'm a starting caliber point guard in this league. For the Jazz, going with Keontae George. Keontae George had a really nice rookie season last year, and I'm a big fan of Keontae George. I think he can be a really, really good player, and I think next year, if he could become the full-time starting point guard in Utah, which it looks like he's probably going to be. Last year, he only started in 44 of his 75 games played, and those starts, he was really good. In Summer League, in Salt Lake City Summer League, he was absolutely incredible. He didn't play in Vegas because that's how good he was. But Keontae George, next year, his second season, could take a huge jump. If he could be the full-time point guard, we don't know what's going to happen with Lauri Markkanen, but if Lauri Markkanen, let's say, does leave, that'll open up even more of a spot for Keontae George to really go off. And I think he's going to put people on notice in his second season. Finally, for the Wizards, I'm going with Jordan Poole. Now, Jordan Poole did not have a good year last year in Washington. Statistically, doesn't look horrible, but watching it, Jordan Poole just didn't look like himself that we used to see in Golden State and Washington last year. A very disappointing year in Washington last year. But I'm still kind of can believe a little bit in the fact that Jordan Poole can still be really good and could come out next year in Washington and be a lot better. Maybe even have a career season next year in Washington. Maybe it just took a 1 year in Washington to kind of figure out what his role is, what's going on, adjust to being kind of like a full-time guy. Last year was his first time being a full-time starter. In Golden State, he had Stephen Clay he was working behind, so he didn't really need to be a full-time starter. Last year was his first time kind of being a full-time starter in a sense, kind of giving the keys of all right, go ahead, Jordan, you're the guy here. And he didn't do well. He had to start coming off the bench again. But I think after that 1 year, maybe he can kind of settle himself down and be all right, this is what it takes to be this is what I'm seeing now. All right, I have to adjust my game to this. And now with maybe coming into his second season, kind of selling in in Washington, being more comfortable, I think he could have maybe a career near next season. Maybe the year we expected last year from Jordan Poole is the year that we're going to get this year. So I believe in Jordan Poole. I want to believe in Jordan Poole. I want him to be really good. We just got to see what he does. But yeah, it's going to be it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Once again, if you do like the content around here, consider subscribing, like, turn notifications, all stuff like that. I'd really appreciate it. It really helps out a lot. And yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow.